In the dusty silence of a salvage yard at the edge of known space, a human mechanic named Leo thought his biggest problem was a faulty plasma torch. His world was one of grease, quiet logic, and the bones of broken starships. That changed the day a shadow colder than the void fell over his junkyard. Not a ship, but a creature from legend, wounded and desperate. A dragon, its scales the color of tarnished starlight, its eyes, once capable of perceiving the flow of solar winds and the birth of nebulae, now shattered and dark. It did not speak with threats, but with a hum of profound loss that vibrated in Leo's very bones. He fixed the impossible, not for glory, but because a broken thing asked for help. He never imagined that repairing a dragon's sight would be a beacon, a signal flare to powers older than mankind. Now, for immense warships, engines silent and intentions shrouded, hang in the sky above his scrap heap home. They are not here for him. They are here for the dragon. And Leo, with a wrench in one hand and a terrible, budding understanding in the other, is the only thing standing between a wounded myth and an unstoppable truth. Document 1. The dust on Jericho's reach wasn't like the dust of Earth. It was finer, metallic, and, under the light of the system's dull red dwarf, it hung in the air like rust-colored fog. Leo wiped a greasy forearm across his brow, leaving a new smear on the old ones. Before him sat the heart of a Mark IV cargo skiff's attitude thruster, a tangled mess of fused conduits and cracked housing. It was a simple, stubborn problem. The kind he liked. His workshop was a cathedral of scrap. Hull plates from Gutam-class freighters formed the walls, the canopy of a shattered fighter jet served as a skylight, and the bones of a dozen spacecraft lay in organized piles, waiting for his touch. It was quiet, save for the low hum of the atmospheric generator and the distant, eternal whisper of the wind over the canyon plains. This was his kingdom. He was the only human on Jericho's reach, by choice. The solitude suited him. The change came not with a sound, but with a silence. The wind stopped. The constant metallic grit in the air seemed to freeze. Then, the light changed. The red sun's glow was choked out by a shadow so vast it felt like the sky had turned to stone. Leo looked up, his plasma torch dying in his hand. It descended not with the roar of engines, but with a terrifying, graceful silence. It was longer than his largest salvage, its form a sinuous curve of impossible anatomy. Scales, each the size of a starship's heat shield, layered over a body of coiled muscle and sinew. They were not a single color, but a shifting spectrum of deep space purples, nebular blues, and the cold gray of asteroid iron. Two vast wings, seemingly woven from cosmic dust and membrane thin enough to see the sickly sun through, folded against its flanks. It landed in the clearing beyond his yard, the ground trembling with a deep, solid thud that had nothing to do with impact and everything to do with mass. It was a dragon. The word surfaced from the deep, myth-saturated parts of Leo's mind, absurd and undeniable. For a long minute, neither moved. The creature's head, crowned with spiraling horns that seemed to twist space around them, lowered. It turned its face toward him. And Leo saw the wounds. Great gouges marred its flank, not bleeding blood, but leaking a slow, shimmering energy that hissed as it touched the dust. But worse were the eyes. Where there should have been orbs of fathomless, intelligent light, there were only two ruined sockets. They looked like shattered observatory domes, cracked and dark, with faint, dying embers deep within. The dragon did not roar. It let out a low, vibrational hum, a sound that traveled through the ground and up into Leo's chest. It wasn't a language he knew, but its meaning was as clear as a scream. It was a map of pain, a schematic of loss. The hum projected not words, but concepts directly into his mind: light. Gone. Pathways. Broken. See the solar cords. Hear the gravity songs. All silent. Leo's mechanic's mind, trained to diagnose the silent ailments of complex machines, understood. The dragon wasn't just blind. Its sight was a sense humans didn't possess, a perception of cosmic forces, energy flows, the very fabric of spacetime. And it was broken. His fear, a cold, sharp thing in his gut, wrestled with a deeper, more instinctive drive. Here was a broken thing. He was a fixer. The dragon was not threatening him. It was asking. Swallowing hard, Leo slowly set down his torch. He raised his hands, palms open. I see the problem, he said aloud, his voice absurdly small in the vast shadow. He approached not as a hunter, but as a technician on a house call. He spent hours just observing, using his scanner not as a weapon, but as a diagnostic tool. The scanner readings were nonsense at first, energy signatures off the scale, quantum fluctuations localized around the wounds. But patterns emerged. The leaking energy from its flank had a frequency. The dead optics of its eyes were structured like incredibly dense photonic crystals, fractured. He worked for 3 days straight. He used a modified welding laser, calibrated to a frequency he derived from the Dragon's own energy signature, to carefully stitch the quantum leakage in its flank. It was like soldering a live power conduit with sunlight. For the eyes, the task was more delicate. He had to fabricate lenses not from glass, but from layered sheets of crystalline composite he salvaged from a broken FTL navigational array. He tuned each layer by hand, using the Dragon's own faint, pained hums as a guide. When it resonated with a smoother, less anguished tone, he knew the frequency was right. On the 4th day, he placed the final lens. He stepped back, his body aching, his mind numb with exhaustion and awe. The Dragon went utterly still. The hum ceased. For a terrifying second, Leo thought he had killed it. Then, deep within the new, polished crystal lenses, a light kindled. It was not a reflection. It was a newborn star. The light grew, swirling with colors Leo had no name for. It raised its head, and the light from its eyes painted the dusty yard in impossible hues, revealing shimmering energy lines in the air, currents in the very atmosphere Leo had never seen. The Dragon looked at him. It did not send a hum of concepts. This time, it formed words, clear and resonant inside Leo's skull, its voice the sound of a nebula gently spinning. You have mended the song. You have returned the light. You are a tender of silent things. It lowered its head until its massive brow was level with Leo's chest. A single scale, small and translucent, the color of twilight, loosened and fell into his soot-stained hands. It was warm and hummed with a gentle, peaceful frequency. A sigil. So the void will know you helped. Then, it looked up, its new eyes seeing far beyond the red dwarf, beyond the system. Its voice in his mind tightened. They have seen the light return. They come. Before Leo could ask who, the Dragon spread its wings. There was no downbeat, no gust of wind. Space itself seemed to flex. One moment it was there, the next, it was a fading streak of spectral light against the stars, and then, gone. Leo stood alone, the scale burning in his hand. The silence of the junkyard rushed back in, but it was different now. It felt like the quiet after a warning bell. He looked up at the empty sky, a cold dread settling in his bones. He had fixed something he didn't understand, and, in doing so, he had sent a signal. A question now hung in the air, heavier than any dragon. What, in the endless dark, had been listening? Document 2 for 2 days, nothing. The scale lay on Leo's workbench, a constant, quiet pulse of warmth against the cold metal. He tried to return to normalcy, to the stubborn Mark IV thruster, but his heart wasn't in it. His eyes kept drifting to the sky. The Dragon's final warning echoed in the silence. They have seen the light return. On the morning of the 3rd day, the sky broke. It wasn't a sudden appearance. It was a slow, grim thickening of the starfield above Jericho's reach. For geometric shadows blotted out the constellations. They slipped into orbit without a sound, without a flare of engines. One moment the sky was clear, the next, for immense warships hung there, silhouetted against the Milky Way. They were angular, brutalist architecture made real, covered in weapon mounts and dark, non-reflective hull plating. They were nothing like the sleek vessels of the human confederacy. These were stark, functional, and radiated a silent, patient menace. Leo's scanners, jury-rigged to monitor orbital traffic, screamed with alerts before going dead, fried by an overwhelming cascade of sophisticated electronic warfare pulses. His comms unit emitted a piercing shriek of static, then died. The lights in his workshop flickered and went out, the atmospheric generator sputtering into silence. They had cut him off. Completely. He stood in the sudden, profound quiet, the only sound his own heartbeat thudding in his ears. He was a mechanic, not a soldier. A hermit, not a diplomat. Panic, cold and slick, started to climb his throat. He forced it down, clenching his fists. They were here for the dragon. He had brought this. He had to face it. He didn't have to wait long. A smaller shape detached from the belly of the largest warship, a dropship, a black arrowhead descending silently. It landed in the same clearing the dragon had used, its hull absorbing the weak sunlight. A ramp extended, and figures emerged. They were tall, bipedal, clad in armor the same dull black as their ship. Their movements were synchronized, efficient. They fanned out, weapons long, rod-like devices with no visible barrels held ready. Their helmets were smooth, featureless ovals. The leader, distinguished only by a faint silver sigil on its shoulder, stopped before Leo. A translated voice, genderless and cold, emanated from a speaker on its chest. Human. You are the anomalous biological associated with this location. You made contact with the celestial scale. You performed modifications. I repaired it, Leo said, his voice steadier than he felt. It was hurt. A slight tilt of the helmet. Your definitions are irrelevant. You interfered with a sovereign asset. The scale's energy signature was reactivated here. Its trajectory terminated here. You will disclose its current vector. It left, Leo said simply. It didn't tell me where it was going. The leader took a step forward. The other soldiers tightened their perimeter. The celestial scale is a being of immense cosmological significance. Its perceptions regulate localized spacetime stability. Its wounding was the result of a containment breach. Its unmonitored state is a critical threat. You will provide all biomatter, energy traces, and material samples from the contact. This wasn't a request. It was an extraction order. Leo thought of the crystal scale on his bench, still softly glowing. Giving it up felt like a betrayal. And, if I don't? The translated voice didn't change tone. Your presence here is an accident. Your continued existence is not a priority. The samples will be taken. One of the soldiers raised its weapon rod. A low hum began to build. Leo braced himself, knowing his wrench and welding torch were useless. A shadow, different from the warships, fell across the yard. It was softer, quieter. A gust of wind, smelling of ozone and cold stone, stirred the dust. The soldiers snapped their weapons up, not at Leo, but at the sky above his workshop. Perched on the arched hull of a gutted freighter, its form coiled and massive, was the dragon. Its repaired eyes blazed with that same inner starlight, fixed on the black-armored soldiers. Its voice, a rolling thunder of tectonic plates and solar winds, spoke aloud, and the translation device on the leader's chest crackled, attempting to keep up. The tenders of the silent web. You hunt a song that does not wish to be caged. The leader spun, weapon aiming at the dragon. Celestial scale. Return to designated harmony. This is a direct order from the curatorium. The dragon's head snaked lower. The curatorium's harmony is a prison of silence. You would blind me to the universe's music to keep your charts neat. I have tasted freedom. I have met a tender who fixes without demanding obedience. It's great. I shifted to Leo. This one is under my sky. He is irrelevant, the leader stated, but a note of tension had entered the translated voice. You are mistaken, the dragon thundered. A single wing unfolded, not to strike, but to shield the space between Leo and the soldiers. The air under that wing thickened, shimmering like a heat haze. You seek the path I took. He holds the only echo of it that I will leave. All the blank helmets turned to Leo. The dragon had just made him the sole objective. It was protecting him by making him the central prize. The scale on his bench wasn't just a token. It was a key, or a map, and the dragon had just told everyone in the yard. The leader made a sharp, chopping motion with its hand. The soldiers' weapons hummed to a higher pitch, targeting the dragon. The standoff was absolute, a triad of tension: the silent, deadly warships in orbit, the mythic beast shielding the junkyard, and the utterly out-of-place human caught in between, holding a piece of a song he couldn't even hear. Document 3. The silence that followed was a taut wire, vibrating with impending violence. The dragon's wing remained a vast, shimmering barrier between Leo and the Curatorium soldiers. The leader's featureless helmet stared past the cosmic beast, locking onto Leo with unnerving precision. The echo, the translated voice demanded. "Relinquish it." Leo's mind raced. The mechanic in him saw the system, three unstable forces in a deadlock. The dragon was powerful, but wounded and outnumbered. The Curatorium soldiers were technologically superior and had orbital dominance. He was the weak point, the loose connection. But, in a complex machine, the weak point, if cleverly manipulated, could cause a systemic failsafe, not a catastrophic failure. He took a slow step back towards his workshop entrance, his hands raised. "It's inside," he said, his voice carrying in the still air. "On my workbench. I'll get it." The dragon's mental voice brushed his mind, a whisper of solar wind. "Little tender, do not trade my gift for their mercy. They have none." "I'm not," Leo muttered under his breath, hoping the dragon could hear. He was planning. He needed to change the variables. He ducked into the relative darkness of his workshop. The crystal scale glowed on the bench, a heartbeat of captured twilight. But he didn't grab it. Instead, his hands flew over his secondary console, the one hardwired into his junkyard's old, mostly defunct infrastructure. The Curatorium's jamming had killed his comms and primary power, but they'd ignored the deep geothermal taps and the crude, hardwired alarm system meant to scare off scavengers. His fingers punched in an override sequence. Outside, nothing seemed to happen. But, deep beneath the dust, old pipes groaned. In the canyon walls around his yard, half-rusted vents, long unused, creaked open. The leader's voice came from the doorway. "Do not delay." "Coming," Leo called. He finally picked up the scale. It felt alive, a tiny galaxy resting in his palm. He walked back out into the open, holding it up so the dying red sun caught its facets. "Here," he said. "The echo." The leader took a step forward, a hand outstretched. The dragon's hum became a warning growl that made the dust on the ground jump. Then, Leo's diversion activated. With a sound like a planet sighing, vast plumes of superheated steam erupted from the canyon vents. They weren't weapons, but they were obscuring, loud, and chaotic. Thick, billowing white clouds roared into the clearing, instantly reducing visibility to mere feet. The Curatorium soldiers, disciplined but unprepared for a geological tantrum, stumbled back, their sensors likely scrambled by the heat and moisture. "Now!" Leo yelled, not knowing if the dragon would understand. He understood. A coil of its tail, impossibly fast, swept around Leo, not to crush, but to scoop. Scales the size of bulkhead doors enclosed him, not in a cage, but in a protective basket. The world outside became a blur of streaking light and deafening sound, not the roar of engines, but the deep, twisting groan of space itself being folded. When the tail uncoiled, the steam was gone. So was the junkyard. They were on a high plateau under a different, harsher sun. The air was thin and cold. In the distance, he could see the jagged teeth of purple mountains. His workshop, the ships, the soldiers, all were hundreds of kilometers away. The dragon laid its head on the bare rock, its great sides heaving. The freshly healed wounds on its flank pulsed with a distressed light. The short, rapid teleportation had cost it. A clever manipulation of latent forces, little tender, its voice was weary in his mind. But it is a pause, not an escape. The silent web tenders see through more than light. They will trace the quantum ripple of our departure. Leo, still clutching the scale, staggered to his feet. "Who are they? What do they want with you?" The dragon's starry eyes dimmed. "The Curatorium. They are stewards. Archivists. They believe the universe is a clockwork to be calibrated. My kind, the Ethelings, we are natural phenomena to them. Living nebulae, sentient pulsars. Things to be observed, catalogued, and, if necessary, corrected. My sight allows me to perceive and gently influence the fundamental forces. They had me in a facility, using my perception to stabilize their great engines, to chart sterile paths through the void. I tore myself free. And they want to put you back in your cage, Leo concluded, anger cutting through his fear. He looked at the beautiful, wounded creature. It wasn't a monster. It was a refugee. They will sterilize the path I took, the dragon confirmed. Your world, your junkyard, will be scoured from their records, and, from reality, to eliminate the contamination. You are an anomaly. You helped an asset self-determine. You are a virus in their perfect system. The scale in Leo's hand felt suddenly heavier. It wasn't just a gift. It was evidence. A piece of the dragon's very being that proved their interaction. It was why the curatorium wanted it so badly, to study, to understand the flaw in their system, and to erase it. He looked at the dragon, then, at the scale, and an idea, born of a lifetime of fixing broken systems with scavenged parts, began to form. It was desperate, probably stupid, and the only tool he had. You said this is an echo of you, Leo said. Can it do what you do? On a smaller scale? Perceive the forces? The dragon's head lifted slightly. A faint reflection. A ripple where I am the wave. Why? A faint, thin whine began to permeate the thin air. High above, the sky darkened once more. Spear points of black metal were descending through the atmosphere. The curatorium. They had found them already. Leo grinned, a wild, reckless expression that didn't fit the gravity of the situation. Because if it's a ripple, maybe we can use it to make a tidal wave in their perfect, silent web. Document for the black dropships descended like falling knives, slicing through the thin atmosphere of the plateau. There were more this time, 6 of them, and they landed in a precise hexagon formation, deploying troops with chilling efficiency. The leader from the junkyard was among them, its silver sigil catching the harsh light. Celestial scale. Human. The anomaly ends here, the translated voice boomed, devoid of anger or urgency, simply stating a fact. Surrender the echo and submit for memory purification. The dragon, Kalen as it had quietly shared its name, pushed itself up, a low, thunderous growl building in its chest. Its wings spread, casting a city-sized shadow. You bring silence to a world that wishes to sing. Leo didn't wait for the standoff to solidify. He clutched the warm scale in one hand and, with the other, he pulled a battered, multi-tool from his belt. He sprinted not away from the soldiers, but towards a peculiar geological feature he'd spotted, a spire of vibrantly colored, crystalline rock that jutted from the plateau like a natural antenna. The human is attempting an action, a soldier reported, its weapon tracking Leo's run. Non-threatening. Prioritize containment of the ethylene, the leader ordered. Weapons hummed, targeting Kalen's wings and legs. Leo reached the crystal spire. He could feel a faint vibration through his boots, a natural piezoelectric charge from the planet's tectonic stress. It was a tiny, chaotic energy. Perfect. Using his multi-tool as an ad hoc sonic driver, he jammed it against the base of the spire and activated a high-frequency pulse. The spire rang like a bell, a pure, sharp tone that made the air shiver. Then, he pressed the dragon's scale against the vibrating crystal. The effect was instantaneous and spectacular. The scale acted as a cosmic amplifier. The tiny, chaotic piezoelectric energy of the spire was suddenly filtered, focused, and projected through the lens of Kalen's essence. A beam of visible, twisting light, threaded with impossible colors, lanced from the scale, not at the soldiers, but at the sky. It struck nothing tangible, but space itself seemed to warp where it touched. The light bent, the image of the distant mountains rippled like a pond. The beam was broadcasting a distorted, amplified version of the planet's own mundane seismic energy, filtered through the signature of a celestial scale. To the curatorium's sensors, it would look like a massive, uncontrolled ethylene energy surge. On the lead dropship, alarms klaxoned. The leader's helmet tilted upward. Orbit reports a localized space-time fluctuation. Scale 7. Source is the human's position. The soldiers hesitated, their protocol for containing a beast conflicting with their protocol for a cosmological event. Kalen saw the opening. It didn't breathe fire, it exhaled a beam of coherent gravitational force. The ground in front of the soldiers didn't explode, it compressed, then rippled, sending a wave of solid rock knifing towards them like a tsunami of stone. They scattered, their disciplined formation breaking. But the leader was fixated on Leo. It raised its weapon rod. A bolt of silent, violet energy shot forth, not deadly, but designed to disrupt and disintegrate inorganic matter. It struck the crystal spire just above Leo's head. The spire exploded in a shower of razor-sharp fragments. Leo was thrown back, the scale flying from his grip. He landed hard, the wind knocked out of him, his chest a flare of pain from the impact. Through a haze of dust and shimmering crystal dust, he saw the leader stride towards the fallen scale, now lying on the rocky ground, its glow flickering erratically. Kalen roared in fury and tried to turn, but two other soldiers hit its flank with crackling energy nets that anchored to the ground, forcing the massive creature down, straining against the bonds. The leader stood over the scale. Echo secured. Purge the anomaly. A soldier leveled its weapon at Leo, who was struggling to push himself up, his vision swimming. This was it. He'd gambled and lost. Then, something changed. The flickering scale wasn't dying. It was charging. The leader's weapon blast, meant to disrupt, was pure, high-spectrum energy. The scale, a lens designed to perceive and manipulate cosmic forces, was absorbing it. It glowed brighter than ever, then, white. A soundless pulse emanated from it. It wasn't destructive. It was revealing. The pulse washed over the plateau. And, suddenly, everyone could see. Visible to the naked eye, shimmering like heat haze made solid, was the silent web the Curatorium cherished. A grid of delicate, silver lines of force crisscrossed the plateau, the planet, the very solar system, a net of artificial stability imposed on the universe. And they could see where Kalen's earlier teleport had torn a jagged, still healing rip in that net. They could see the constant, gentle pressure of the dragon's natural energy, a soft gold against the sterile silver, straining against the web. But they could also see, emanating from Leo himself, a faint, stubborn, copper-colored light. It was the anomaly signal. The mark of his interaction, his help. It wasn't a flaw in the web. It was something else entirely, a new node, unplanned, alive. The Curatorium soldiers froze, their discipline shattered by this forced, direct perception of their own foundational reality. The leader stared at the copper light emanating from the human, then, at the torn web, then, at the struggling dragon. Its translated voice, for the first time, held a tremor. The variable is not random. It is creative. Kalen, straining against the nets, sent its voice thundering across the revealed landscape. You see now, tenders of the silent web. You seek to correct a song because you fear its new note. He does not break your harmony, he offers a new chord. In that moment of stunned revelation, Leo saw his chance. He wasn't a soldier or a cosmic being. He was a mechanic. And he could see the power lines of the web. He scrambled, not for a weapon, but for a sharp, heavy fragment of the broken crystal spire. With a grunt of effort, he drove it like a chisel into a glowing silver nexus point where several web lines converged on the ground. There was no explosion. There was a discord. A shriek of wrongness, like a symphony stumbling. A section of the web flickered and went dark. The energy nets holding Kalen sputtered and died. The dragon surged to its feet, free. The leader, instead of firing, simply stood, watching the dark patch in its perfect web, watching the copper light of the human who had caused it. The pursuit, the capture, its entire purpose seemed to drain away, replaced by a catastrophic, existential confusion. Kalen's tail curled around Leo once more, gently this time. The note has been struck, little tender. The song is changed. Now, we must see who is listening. With another wrenching of space, they vanished from the plateau, leaving the Curatorium forces standing amidst the visible, broken strands of their own certainty. Document 5. They emerged not on another planet, but in the interstitial dark. The space between solar systems, where the void was absolute and the stars were distant, cold pinpricks. Kalen floated, wings motionless, held aloft by will and a subtle manipulation of local gravity. Before them hung not warships, but a structure. It was colossal, a ring of gleaming, organic-looking metal the color of moonstone, slowly rotating around a core of calm, blue light. It made the curatorium vessels look like crude toys. The Aegis, Kalen's voice was a whisper of awe and apprehension in Leo's mind. My kind's older cousins. The Weavers. They tend the deeper patterns the curatorium cannot even perceive. They have heard the discord. A portal irised open in the ring, emitting a soft, welcoming glow. There was no request, no demand. It was an invitation that could not be refused. Kalen, with Leo still sheltered in the coil of its tail, flew inside. The interior was not a hallway or a chamber. It was a representation of the galaxy itself, stretched out in a holographic tapestry that filled the immense space. Stars burned, nebulae swirled, and, through it all, threads of brilliant gold, silver, and copper light pulsed in, flowed in a slow, majestic dance. This was the true music, the real symphony Kalen had spoken of. Figures moved within the tapestry. They were draconic, like Kalen, but vaster, more ethereal. Their forms were half solid, half constellation, their eyes supernovae held in check. They were the Aegis. One of them detached from the tapestry and approached. Its voice was not sound, but the gentle pull of a tide. Young Scale. You are wounded. You have sung aloud, ragged note that tore the lesser web. And you have brought a new instrument. Its star-filled gaze fell upon Leo. He felt utterly transparent, every thought, every grease-stained memory, every impulse to fix what was broken, laid bare. Kalen bowed its head. Elder Weaver. The curatorium sought to mute me. This human, Leo, repaired my sight. He did not seek to control the song, only to mend a broken part. His actions created a new resonance. The Weaver studied the copper light that still faintly clung to Leo, a light visible in this realm. It then looked at the tapestry, where a small, new copper thread now pulsed near a representation of Jericho's reach, connected to Kalen's golden strand. The recent discord was a small, messy knot of silver, the curatorium's web, tangling with the gold and copper. The curatorium operates on ancient protocols, the Weaver mused, its tone not unkind. They fear chaos. But they mistake new melodies for noise. Your human did not create chaos. He introduced improvisation. Another Weaver glided closer. The lesser stewards have been notified. Their aggression is suspended. They are analyzing the new data. The anomaly has been reclassified as a potential transformative variable. Leo found his voice, small but steady in the cosmic chamber. What does that mean? For me? For my home? The first Weaver looked at him. It means your existence, and the existence of your world, is no longer an error to be corrected. It is a phenomenon to be observed. The curatorium will withdraw. They will watch. They will learn, perhaps, that a universe perfectly controlled is a universe dead. It was a reprieve, but it felt conditional, vast, and cold. Kalen stirred. And I? You are free, young Scale, the Weaver said. Your time in the curatorium's cage has ended. You may roam the chords once more. But, know this, you are now bound to a new note. Its gaze included Leo. The copper and the gold are entwined. Your songs will affect each other, across the distance. Leo understood. He wasn't going to be given a starship or godlike powers. He was going back to his junkyard. But he would never be just the mechanic again. He had a friend, a patron, a connection to something unimaginably vast. So that's it? Leo asked. I go home, and you go back to the music? Kalen lowered its head to his level. I will listen for your song, little tender. When a machine is silent, or a light goes out, your frustration will be a faint, copper sigh in the void. I will hear it. And, perhaps, sometimes, I will visit. The universe has many spare parts. There was a hint of deep, cosmic humor in its tone. The weavers returned to their tapestry, their attention already drifting back to the grand symphony. The audience was over. Kalen carried Leo back through the portal. They did not travel vast distances this time. In a single, gentle step through space, they were back. The red dwarf sun was setting over Jericho's reach, painting the canyon in familiar shades of rust and shadow. His workshop stood exactly as he had left it, the Mark IV thruster still waiting. The dragon set him down gently in the dusty yard. The 4 curatorium warships were gone from orbit. The sky was empty, silent, normal. Kalen looked at the humble junkyard, at the human who had used steam and crystal to defy cosmic stewards. You mended more than my sight, Leo. You mended a small piece of a cold, silent universe. You made it sing, just for a moment. Leo smiled, looking at his hands, still smeared with grease and stardust. Just doing my job. The dragon gave a low, approving hum that vibrated in the planet's bedrock. Then, with a grace that still stole Leo's breath, it unfolded its wings and leapt into the darkening sky. It did not vanish in a flash this time. It became a faint, golden streak, a new star moving slowly against the constellations, until it was just another light in the endless night. Leo stood alone in the quiet. The fear was gone, replaced by a profound, weary wonder. He walked back into his workshop. The crystal scale was gone, left behind on the plateau or taken by the weavers, he didn't know. But, on his workbench, where it had lain, was a single, perfect feather, seemingly forged from nebulae and moonlight. It was cool to the touch and hummed with a familiar, peaceful frequency. He picked it up, placed it carefully on a shelf above his bench, next to a worn plasma torch and a cracked motivator coil. Then, he turned, grabbed his tools, and walked over to the stubborn Mark IV thruster. He had work to do. The universe was vast and strange, and now, wonderfully, it knew his name. But, here, in his cathedral of scrap, a broken thruster still needed fixing. And he was, after all, a very good mechanic.